Thank you everybody for coming. Nice to see you all again. What I want to tell you about today is exploring the RSE research the research software engineering landscape at the HZDR. I will go into detail what this is right at the moment, but I also want to set the expectations. I am not going to present a fully finished project. I'm going to tell you what initial approaches we took, and I want to present you what we found out so far. So let's talk about the, come on. Okay, nice. So first of all, to set a little bit of context, who are we, or who is doing this little bit of exploration? That would be Thomas Förster, my colleague, who is not here in this session, but he's jumping around on the conference grounds. So if you have any further questions about this, you may also want to talk to him. Nice guy. And then there's Fredo, that's me. And we basically set out to go ahead and explore a little bit what the HZDR people think about research software engineering. I want to give you a little bit of context here. The HZDR, short for Helmholtz-Zentrum Dresden-Rossendorf, basically is a Helmholtz Center, so it's a research facility in the context of the Helmholtz Association. We have 1,500 employees, and around 900 of them are in some kind scientifically indulged. So we have the scientists, the PhD students, the master students, and so on and so forth. Basically, I counted them all as somehow science and therefore RSE related. From when it comes to the topics, the HZDR is mostly involved in working in the area of physics, mostly energy physics, matter physics, fluid dynamics, and so on and so forth. We also have a little part in cancer research and diagnostics and treatment. So, what do? We wanted to capture the mood about research software engineering in this center. And we wanted to do this mostly because we needed to have some aid in our decision-making processes to figure out how we want to set up our future education offers, because as you may have noted on the first slide, I'm dealing with education. My colleague Thomas is dealing with consulting. So what we also want to do is we want to dive a little bit more into community building, so that our research software engineers or people who use the research software can get closer together. And to do this, we need to figure out what drives them, because you can't build a community without having a motivation for that, or a drive or a problem to solve. So how did we do this? We did not do a proper scientific survey, mostly for the reason that setting up a proper survey takes a lot of time. You need to know how to do it right, and we don't. That's not our main topic. So what we tried to achieve is to get more of a snapshot of opinions. We tried to basically get, if you would like to have something that is more, that captures the mood of people, but we will not do a proper go-ahead survey, and then you prepare a big questionnaire and you send out emails, and nobody is ever answering these surveys, because who answers surveys that get sent by email? So we instead opted to basically go knock on doors, have face-to-face interviews with people. These were limited to around 20 minutes per interview to not steal too much time for everybody. We had some guiding questions in mind, what we wanted to talk about, but we also wanted to let them basically drift off, because usually when people start talking, they tend to talk about the stuff that is important for them. So that gave us a lot of hints what people considered important if they stuck with the topic for a very long time. Now, we also have a little challenge here that we can't ignore. We want to preserve the anonymity of the people who we questioned, which on the one hand, we want to do this because we wanted to encourage them to share their opinions, to basically also rant a little bit, because, you know, ranting is fun. And this means if we ask them to share their maybe unpopular or maybe even controversial opinions with us, that we basically don't want to give hints who said this stuff, and since there is a quite tight-knit community at HZDR, and it's sometimes very easy to recognize people from very small hints, we try to avoid that. And instead, what we basically do is we limited the collection of data to the core thoughts that were issued. We did not quote anybody. We also basically only present summaries here, because otherwise, again, we have only 10 interviews currently done. So it's very easy to pick out a partial person. So that's the reason why this is a first initial result. We thought about publishing these initial results or these notes that we took during the interviews, but we haven't done this so far because we haven't figured out how to do it without exposing maybe critical information. So if you have any good ideas on how we might tackle this, please talk to us. We would be very eager to listen to you and figure out how to do this. Okay, so with this all out of the way, take everything that is said here with a big grain of salt. The sample size is very small. It's mostly personal opinions. But maybe we can use this as a hint where to actually invest more time into looking into a certain topic, into a certain correlation between topics. So, one of the first questions that we asked people are, first of all, would you consider yourself a research software engineer? And we basically put this on a scale from high to none. So high is a high self-identification. People who say, yes, I'm a research software engineer, 100%. And then you have people who say, well, mostly, but not exactly. And then we have a low confidence where people say, well, not really, but I dabble a little bit. And then we have people who basically say, no, I have nothing to do with research software engineering at all. And then we also ask them, of this 100% of your workday, how much is spent on the three topics of software development, research, and management? The reason we want to do this is we wanted to capture what kind of basically job people have. So when we put this in this nice little ternary graph, it basically adds up to, you have these three components which add up to 100%. And from these three components, you can determine a coordinate in this graph. And you see here these three corners. So people who do 100% of software development will end up right at the top. People who do 100% management will end up to the lower left. And people who do 100% research will end up to the lower right. You see the highlighted areas here. These are the 50% markers. So somebody who ends up in the lower left highlighted area at least does 50% management. So you could basically say they are mostly a manager or have a managing role in the institution. So that, the dots give you a nice little indication where the people were located that we interviewed. You see that all people who basically do more than 50% software development also said, yes, I'm a RSE, I have a high self-identification. That's not very surprising. You also notice that one person who basically has a 50-50 split between software development and management. So they are half a manager and half a software developer, but they still self-identified 100% as an RSE. And then you have a bit more of a spread. You see that there is a little bit of medium confidence, and you also see in this corner down here in the bottom right, where people who do mostly research, they dabble a little bit in software development, they do a little bit of management, but usually somewhere around the 5% mark. So they have a low to almost no confidence in, or no self-identification as an RSE. So it's not entirely surprising. I would say these 2 points here that are close together at the 50% management mark are a little bit interesting because there's a quite large gap between them when it comes to self-identification, but basically they do have a very similar job profile. So that's one part. Another question that we asked is that we, from the projects that you do, how much work time do you invest in software development, if you do any at all? And basically, we try to pin a number to that. You know, measuring the effort that goes into software development is really hard. Quantifying this effort is even harder. So basically, what we did is, because some people give us the scale in hours, in men or in person hours invested in their projects. Some people give us the measurement in terms of money or basically as a monetary quantity. So what we basically did is we tried to put this into 3 categories that we have. The smaller project size on the left, which are mostly like I develop like 3 or 4 scripts in a year. Then you have the medium-sized projects, which occupy a notable amount of work time for a person. Notably, we have one little cluster there. That was one person who said, basically, I spend almost all my time working on software projects, but this is not one big project. These are like 50 small little bits that build up to a larger context. And then we have some outliers here that some people worked on projects that ran into the far more than 1,000 hours per year. It's all scaled to a year, and you can basically assume that one full-time equivalent clocks in around 2,000 hours of work time per year. So also somewhat equivalent to 100,000 euros of output. So just so you have a scale, what this means. That means that we have some projects where multiple persons are obviously involved, basically full time. Okay, so we talked about RSE education. We asked the people about the current state. I mean, especially when we want to do education, that's always very good to know where people come from. So where did people learn stuff? And almost all of them, except one person, said, I'm to a significant extent self-taught. Only half of them said, yeah, I had something in university to maybe give some foundations. Then, very interesting, I found that we have multiple mentioning of I learn by reverse engineering stuff. That was a bit odd. And then we asked them, what are the obstacles that you encounter when you're learning? What basically stops you from learning more or learning faster? And half of the people said, I have to deal with insufficient documentation, insufficient tutorials, and insufficient here can mean it's missing, it's incomplete, it's outdated, it doesn't cover my corner case, and so on and so forth. So basically, in some way, it's just insufficient. People also very often noted that they perceive a lack of community as a problem when learning. They have nobody to ask. And that they sometimes say, okay, I don't know how I gain experience. I have the theory lesson, but I don't know how to apply it. I don't have a use case, etc. So then we asked, what would you like when it comes to education? So here, when it comes to the form, they gave us a wide variety. Everybody learns differently. And this is mirrored here, that they basically have all kinds of things that they prefer. So what this means for an education perspective is that you would try to offer as many different as possible approaches to the same material so people can choose what they prefer. At least that would be my interpretation. What we also then find is we asked about the content. It's basically all across the board. So one thing that stuck out is that many people said, listen, I have a domain-specific problem. I want a solution. I don't want all the foundations. I want this specific solution to this specific problem. So they are not always interested in learning everything. They want their problem solved. And lastly, challenges and opportunities, very quickly. Which challenges and opportunities do people perceive in the research software engineering field? you will be shocked to learn that funding and contracts was probably the #1 issue that people had. Mostly sustainability was the biggest concern, and also then we have quality assurance, code infrastructure, fast development cycles that put people under pressure. We have a lack of community and open exchange, so people want to talk more. And this also leads to further challenges down the road that are basically a consequence of that. Regarding the opportunities, what most people recognize is that the importance is growing quite a lot. And they hope that this, of course, then leads decision makers to also encourage more funding, better contract conditions, and so on and so forth. Last note, research software development was also noted to be a possible research topic in itself. But people were completely unsure if this is a good thing or if this is a challenge or an opportunity. So yeah, the votes are still out on that one. Okay, that's all I have for you at this moment. Thanks for your attention, and yeah, I'm open for questions.